like I teased earlier, I have one more crime that I have committed. And Ronya in here was asking me if I was ever going to read any fan fiction live. Little did she know that I have written a fan fiction. I have written Owl House fan fiction, folks. So I have posted this on Archive of Our Own, an account that I created a couple days ago. The only fan fiction I will ever write. I'll link it in the chat right here. But the title is, I'm going to say it before I link it here. The title of the fanfic is just Lilith Drinks Piss. So there's that. No Oracle could have seen this coming. That's right. So I'm going to do a live reading of my fanfic. I've linked it in the chat. I wrote this in a single day. This is the Lilith drinking piss fan fiction. So to kind of give the story, during the 2x4 reaction, I was talking about people that fall for scams of fake medicine, fake science stuff. And I specifically mentioned there's a group of people that think drinking piss is healthy for you, that it's good for you. And it's just like, no, but there's people that do it. And so somehow me mentioning that there's some people that drink piss, somehow I think it was in the live reaction chat, the live premiere chat, morphed into Lilith drinks piss. I don't remember how, but that's how it morphed. And I all of a sudden I thought of like a backstory for why Lilith would drink piss, that why it would help her in this scenario. And I'm gonna do a dramatic reading of my fan fiction right now. The notes here is this takes place immediately after the events of Young Blood, Old Souls. So like right after the end of season 1, this is where this picks up. Holy hoot! You guys look horrible! Not now, Hootie, Ida sighed as she pushed open the door to the owl house. I'm tired. We're all tired. We need some sleep. Ida, Luz, and King walked into their home, heads hanging low from the experience they had all just had. Lilith stopped outside the door. After all she had done, she couldn't bring herself to walk inside. And on top of all that, she felt awful. I wish I could have at least thought this through a little bit more, she thought to herself. Being unable to do magic was new for her. She had always worked hard to be the best she could be, and now, what was all that for? Everything she had devoted her life to was now gone. A powerless witch, and a terrible sister, too. Get in here, Lily. You're letting all the good air out, Ida snapped from 2 rooms over. Lilith took one step, and then another, and was inside. Hootie closed behind her, saying, Alarm setting for the night! To which Ida, walking in from the kitchen, mumbled, Darn it, Luz, why'd you tell Hootie about your home security systems? He does this every night now. Ida was holding 2 bottles of liquid. Here, Lily, you're going to need to start drinking these. Ida tossed them both into the air, catching them both in the crooks of her arms before twisting the corks off. Just a little trick she had picked up trying to steal human artifacts from a nearby frat house at a nearby university. In one motion, Ida tossed both bottles back up into the air, catching the one that she lifted to her lips, and the other she extended out to Lilith. Lilith reached out for it timidly, asking, What is this? Elixir. Ida managed to get out between gulps. She finished downing her bottle and said, Look, if you just split this curse with me, eventually it's going to rear its ugly head for you. And you, being the one who gave it to me, knows how angry it'll be. So you might as well start treating it now. Ida wiped her mouth and plopped down on the couch next to where Luz and King were already laying and closed her eyes. Lilith stared at the bottle in her hand. She didn't deserve this. After all she'd done for Ida, Ida now invites her into her home, let her stay, and is helping treat her new curse? It didn't feel right. After all, if it was her, she wouldn't be this easy to forgive. She lifted the bottle up to her mouth and stopped. The smell was awful. She recoiled a bit. Lilith had experience with potion making in the past, but the smell was unlike anything she'd ever encountered. It almost smelled like... Wait. Maybe Ida was trying to get back at her after all. But she had just seen Ida consume the same yellow liquid. How often will I have to drink this? Lilith asked, trying to get a little more information out of her sister. Depends on the day. Maybe 4, 5, Ida answered as she was rubbing the stress from her eyes. And what's in it? Geez, Lily, I don't know. Just drink it. Lilith couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong about all this. The smell, it was so familiar, but oh no. Lilith all of a sudden thought she knew what this was, and then she couldn't get the thought out of her head. This was Ida trying to pull one on her. It just had to be. Ida had just tried to get Lilith to drink piss. She was sure of it. She lowered the bottle. How long have you been drinking these? Lily, it's been years. If you don't trust me after all this, then fine. Give it a few days and see how you feel once the beast starts to take over. With that, Ida shambled up from the couch, looked down at Luce and King, who had already fallen asleep from the exhaustion of the day, and started to go up to bed. Look, it's not much, but nudge Luce and tell her to scoot over. There should be room on the couch for both of you. I'll see you in the morning and we'll figure out something more. And she stumbled up the stairs and out of sight. Lilith took the bottle into the kitchen, poured the elixir out the window. Thanks for your hospitality, Ida, but this one I don't trust. She went back into the living room and laid down awkwardly on the couch. There wasn't enough room for her, but she made herself fit. In the morning, she felt worse. Her neck and back were sore from the corkscrew position she was laying in. She seemed to be the first awake, startled awake by Hooty yelling, "Beep, beep, beep, beep! Disarmed!" She sat up and looked out the window. What was she going to do with her life now? As the others woke up and congregated in the kitchen for breakfast, Ida made an offhand remark that she was glad Lilith could get the elixir down and just to ask her when she wanted some more. Lilith felt her eyes narrow and then caught herself, hoping nobody else noticed. As time went on, she watched Ida. Just as she said, she drank about 4 to 5 elixirs per day herself. She'd asked Ida for one here and there and poured it out when nobody was looking, but she couldn't get why Ida would just keep up this charade. Luce and King didn't mention anything about it. Why was she so dedicated to this sick joke that she was just willing to drink her own piss just to get Lilith to do the same? On the 4th day at the Owl House, Lilith was feeling awful. She could feel something inside of her trying to get out. Was this the curse? Panicking, she ran upstairs into the bathroom. Was Ida telling the truth? What if that she was drinking actually worked? She could feel a tightness in her chest as she desperately tried to figure out what to do. Well, if I'm going to drink piss, it's going to be my own. Lilith muttered to herself as she picked up an empty bottle laying off to the side of her room. She turned to face the door to make sure nobody was coming in, and relieved herself into the bottle. She hadn't ever done anything like this before, and she peed on her hands and onto the floor a little. She took a deep breath, pinched her nose, and took a quick but small sip. Ugh! She retched as she almost spit out what was in her mouth. She forced herself to swallow. She took 3 more deep breaths and then upended the bottle, chugging it down. I'm just reading the chat as I'm reading this, and everyone is just like, what the fuck is this? It's Lilith drinking piss. You knew this was going to happen. It's in the title. Where was I? She chugged it down. She felt herself retch again. She did her best to keep herself from throwing up. She immediately felt a sense of relief, but couldn't tell if what she did worked or if it was some placebo effect. She could still feel what was inside of her stirring, but for now she had to hope that what she had done had worked. Okay, she asserted herself, looking into the mirror. You can do this. Over the next few days... See? Okay, but this is actually good. I told you. I wrote a legitimate fanfic. It just happens to be about Lilith drinking piss because she mind-gamed herself into it. Over the next few days... Lilith secreted a way to drink piss in private. She still didn't feel too much better, but she didn't feel worse either. She still asked Ida for some of her elixirs to hide the fact that she was, in essence, making her own. Once, Ida even remarked, "Well, Lily, you must really be loving these," as she snorted and handed her 2 bottles instead, for when you get thirsty again. She once again poured them out when nobody was looking. This went on for a week. Lilith downed bottle after bottle of piss in secret. She didn't notice after a few days, but she was starting to actually get used to it. She was no longer fighting the urge to throw up after drinking, just took it down. About a week into this endeavor, tragedy struck. She had grown a little careless in her efforts, it now being a part of her everyday routine, and did not lock the door behind her as she went up to make her first bottle of the morning. Midstream, she heard the door open behind her. It was Luz. Luz stopped in the doorway, mid-yawn, and gawked at what she was looking at, stunned. She took one step back and started closing the door. Miss Lilith, and then just fully closed the door. Lilith put her bottle down and went and opened the door. Luz was still standing with this exact same expression on her face as when she had closed the door. Miss Lilith? What are you doing? Lilith responded, it's the elixir. I figured out what it is, and I've been doing this myself for the past week. A look of horror crossed Luz's face. Miss Lilith, I've heard people in the human realm who do this, but I always assumed it was nonsense. But as far as the elixirs go, I've seen Morton make them when Ida takes me down to the market. Whatever you think is in the elixir, it's safe. I've even tried it once. Lilith's face immediately flushed red as she scrambled to find words. I just, Luz, I thought, oh, Titan, Luz, please don't tell anyone. Luz sheepishly looked at Lilith and said, hey, Miss Lilith, I know how bad it would feel for something like this to get out. I promise I won't tell King or Ida or anybody about this. You should probably go try the real elixir. Luz and Lilith walked downstairs as Ida was finishing preparing breakfast. Took you too long enough. I thought I was going to have to eat this all on my own. She snorted again. Lilith, now doing her best to remain composed, asked, could I get an elixir to start my day off right? Ida smiled and handed one over. She popped off the cork and took her first real sip and started coughing. It tasted even more terrible than it smelled, and at this point, worse than the piss. Oh, this is terrible. Come on, Lily, it's from the same batch as all the ones you had yesterday. I thought you were a pro by now. What gives? Then all of a sudden, Hootie stretched into the kitchen. It's because Lilith's been drinking piss for the past week. As Luz bounded over to cover his mouth, Lilith's face, which had just returned to its normal pallor, turned bright red again. Wait, Lily? You? She looked at the bottle of yellow liquid and then back at her sister, then collapsed on the ground, laughing and snorting. King, who was standing the closest to Lilith, took two steps back and simply said, ew. Let's never speak of this again, Lilith meekly said as she shrunk down into her seat at the table. And they never did. The end! That's my fanfic.